29 years. I mean, you just have to sit with that number for a second.
You do.
29 years. That is the sheer visceral embarrassment the most valuable sports team on earth carries around its neck.
It's the longest drought in the entire NFC. They haven't even appeared in the conference championship game.
And that's the core of it, right? It is the ultimate cognitive dissonance in professional sports.
Totally. How can a global brand valued at over $10 billion? I mean, some projections are pushing $15 billion for next year.
A team they call America's team.
How can that team be so defined by just profound, consistent failure when it matters most?
And that tension, that whole paradox, it really defines the legacy of one man, Jerry Jones.
Of course.
Everyone knows the mainstream story. You know, Jones is the visionary who built this financial empire.
But he's also the ego-driven obstacle, the guy whose inability to let go of football control has blocked them from winning since 1996.
Right. But we came across this really provocative perspective, a different way of looking at the whole thing.
It challenges that entire assumption, and it forced us to ask if we've been looking at this through completely the wrong lens.
We're talking about the shocking thesis put forth by a writer, Daniel L. Bates, DLB.
And Bates doesn't just, disagree with the critics. He argues Jones isn't the problem at all.
No. He says Jones is the essential architect of future success, which is just a wild take.
It is. His whole argument rests on this idea that critics just ignore the human element, the loyalty, the care Jones shows people. They're just focused on the rings.
And the emotional anchor he provides for this whole argument it's almost impossible to ignore because it's so deeply personal.
It really is. He states his own profound loyalty, and he admits, and this is a direct quote, Jerry Jones buying the Dallas Cowboys saved my life.
I mean, stop right there. That's a life-altering emotional foundation.
Yeah, that's not fandom.
No, it's gratitude. And it establishes this powerful bias that colors his entire analysis. It forces you to look past the box scores, the playoff losses.
And start asking what the Cowboys are truly prioritizing. Is it championships, or is it something else, like constant relevance and just massive wealth?
So that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to synthesize the undeniable good, the structural bad, and the psychological ugly of the Jerry Jones era.
We're putting the visible facts, all those catastrophic failures, right up against the unseen financial motives to try and figure out the true cost of being America's team.
Okay, so let's start with the ledger, because really, this is where the conversation has to begin.
It's where all the power comes from.
In 1989, Jerry Jones buys the Dallas Cowboys for what Bates calls a paltry $140 million.
A paltry sum. Today, it's conservatively valued at over $10 billion.
That is a staggering return on investment. It's not just successful, it completely redefines financial success in pro sports.
And it's not just, luck or appreciation. This was engineered. It was aggressive value creation.
And his background is so key here, isn't it? He came from oil and gas.
Right, and he brought that wildcatter mindset directly into the NFL. A wildcatter, they drill in these risky, unproven places. They take these huge financial leaps.
Huge gambles.
Exactly, all for the promise of a massive payoff. And that's exactly what he did with the Cowboys.
He translated that risk-taking directly into how he saw the league, which you have to remember at the time was run like this conservative old boys club.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jones saw a global entertainment property that was just profoundly undermonetized.
And that vision led him to challenge the very core of the league's economic structure.
Bates really highlights this. He points out that Jones was instrumental in getting these massive broadcasting deals. The most famous one, of course, was pulling the NFL rights from CBS and giving them to the upstart Fox network in the early 90s.
A move that people thought was insane at the time.
Totally insane. But that one move generated so much money that it basically raised the economic floor for every single team in the league. It stabilized the whole enterprise.
But the real revelation, the thing that really let Jones become the behemoth he is, was his fight for individual team sponsorships.
Yeah. This is the big one. He took on the monolithic power of the league. And sources say this fight was just ferocious.
It ended with him filing a notorious $700 million lawsuit against the NFL.
This wasn't just a squabble over money. This was a war over the brand, over control.
The league argued that all team sponsorships, they should be centralized, pooled, shared among everybody.
And Jones basically said no. He argued that a global brand like the Cowboys, with its massive, massive following, should be able to leverage that popularity directly.
He won.
He won. That victory established the right for individual teams to go out and strike their own enormous lucrative endorsement deals. We're talking Nike, Pepsi, American Express.
AT&T, for God's sake, the name on the stadium.
Deals that were worth $60 million or more back then. That lawsuit essentially created two economic classes in the NFL.
The big market brands who could cash in.
And, well, everyone else.
And Bates is so emphatic about this. Jones didn't just get rich. He permanently altered the salary cap and revenue dynamics for the whole league.
Which is why Bates makes that bold claim. Every owner in the NFL wants to be Jerry Jones. He literally rewrote the rule book to favor the aggressive, high-value brand.
And you can see that success enshrined in the actual structures he built. I mean, look at AT&T Stadium, Jerry World.
It's not just a venue, it's a declaration. Bates calls it a global icon that declared the Cowboys a global entertainment brand.
The financial mechanics of that place are they're breathtaking. It consistently has the highest average attendance in football.
Over 93,000 people a game.
And that capacity, combined with the insane ticket prices and all those luxury suites, it just creates unrivaled revenue.
Sources report that in 2023 alone, the Cowboys generated $1.2 billion in revenue, with an operating income close to $500 million.
It's a cash machine built to generate spectacle. And it's not even his only monument. He also built the Star in Frisco,
which is this 91-acre campus. It's the headquarters, training facility, shops, medical centers.
It's a full 360-degree Cowboys experience. It's immersive, and it runs all year long.
He built an entire ecosystem. And Bates argues that facility alone set a new gold standard. It's the one that, quote, every NFL team now envies.
It shows his commitment to building a self-sustaining, year-round brand. The genius of the businessman is it's undeniable.
But this is the moment. This is where we have to pivot. Because that financial genius created, on the field, a profound and lasting failure.
The contrast is it's horrifying. We've talked about the $10 billion. Now we have to stare into that 29-year chasm.
29 years. Since Super Bowl XXX in 1996, no NFC Championship game appearance.
They have only 5 total playoff wins in the last 30 years.
5.
And the numbers since the turn of the millennium are even more devastating.
Since the year 2000, the Cowboys have a 4-10 record in the postseason,
which gives them the 4th lowest playoff winning percentage of any team in the entire NFL over that span.
Think about that. The most valuable brand is one of the worst performing teams in the playoffs for 2 decades.
To really feel the weight of this, you have to look at the historical company they're keeping.
It's not good.
In the last quarter century, only 3 other franchises have failed to make a conference championship game.
And they are
the Cleveland Browns, the Miami Dolphins, and the Houston Texans.
Wow. That's historically bad company for a team that's supposed to be an elite global brand.
The tragedy is amplified when you realize how many teams have just lapped them.
Oh, yeah. Sources confirm that a third of the entire league, teams like the Giants, the 49ers, the Rams, the Panthers, Tampa Bay,
all of them have been to the NFC Championship at least twice since the Cowboys last showed up.
They're a fixture in the divisional round. They get there, and then they freeze. They're frozen solid, one step away from the ultimate prize.
And if you follow the conventional wisdom, the mainstream narrative, all of this structural, decades-long failure traces back to one singular emotional event.
The divorce from Jimmy Johnson.
That's the original sin. That's what everyone points to.
The story goes that Jones's ego it exploded after those back-to-back Super Bowls.
Well,
Texie 7 and Texie 8.
He couldn't share the credit with Johnson, who is the legendary coach, the architect who built that dynasty using all the assets from the famous Herschel Walker trade.
And that tension just boiled over. It culminated in Jones's infamous quote about how 500 coaches could have won with that roster.
And just like that, Johnson was gone. The dynasty was fractured instantly. The common analysis is that Jones needed to be seen as the football architect, and Johnson's genius was just too bright. It overshadowed him.
It was an emotional wound that has, you could argue, never healed. Not in the fan base, and maybe not in Jones himself.
The second Johnson left, Jones immediately elevated himself to de facto general manager. He solidified his control over every personnel decision, every coaching hire.
But this is where Bates introduces a really crucial, though maybe unpopular, piece of counter context.
Right. He argues that the league itself changed fundamentally right after that split.
The new era of true free agency and a hard salary cap arrived almost at the exact same time.
So The ability to just maintain that kind of generational dominance, which the Cowboys had in the early 90s, it became exponentially harder.
Exactly. You couldn't just hoard talent anymore. So Bates asks this provocative question. Was the breakup purely about ego?
Or was it also about Jones and Johnson, two highly controlling alpha personalities, failing to adapt to a new, harder game where maximizing cap space and drafting perfectly were suddenly the most important things?
That complicates the simple ego narrative, but the psychological ripple effect. That's what really matters for the next 30 years.
Did that split create this deep subconscious need in Jerry Jones to prove that he, the oil man, the wildcatter, was the true football mastermind? That he could build a champion without an independent genius like Johnson by his side?
I think it has to have. That subconscious need, it explains the decades-long pattern of micromanagement.
It explains why he insists on being the GM. It explains why his coaches have to be pliable.
Look at Jason Garrett. He spent 9 years as head coach under Jones, and he led the team to this state of just agonizing mediocrity.
4 8-8 seasons.
Or that entire stretch just screams of an owner who values compliance, or what the critics would call a yes man, over making aggressive moves to actually get to the next level.
The structural failure isn't a lack of money or a lack of commitment. It's a lack of empowerment. The owner's need for validation became the choke point for the whole championship machine.
And that choke point leads us directly into the third act of the Jones era, which is this clear, unmistakable prioritization of the content mill over the traditional dynasty.
He found something out. He discovered that if he couldn't guarantee rings, he could absolutely guarantee relevance.
And that pivot from dynasty to content mill is perfectly laid bare by his own. I mean, it was an astonishing confession.
At the premiere of that Netflix docuseries a few years back, he just smiled and said it.
He said, "The Cowboys are a soap opera 365 days a year. When it gets slow, I'll stir it up. That controversy is good stuff."
That's the showman's strategy. And you have to admit, it's a brilliant business model.
Oh, it's genius. The Cowboys are always relevant, and they're immensely profitable, regardless of whether they win or lose.
They dominate headlines, they dominate clicks, they dominate sports talk radio, because Jones intentionally generates sizzle that commands national attention no matter what's happening on the field in January.
Think about the intentional acts of sizzle over the years.
Okay, like in 2003, he hires the Hall of Fame coach, Bill Parcells.
Instantly legitimizes the franchise again.
Yeah.
It gives them immediate national credibility, gets everyone talking, but it was always going to end badly.
Because of Jones's need for control, Parcells wasn't going to be a yes man.
Then there's the acquisition of Terrell Owens. T.O., highly combustible.
Right after his messy public divorce from the arch-rival Philadelphia Eagles.
T.O., guaranteed constant front-page drama. He guaranteed ratings. He turned every Cowboys game into mandatory viewing because you never knew if he was going to catch 3 touchdowns or just explode on the sideline.
Even the deepest, most painful heartbreaks became viral content. Tony Romo's fumbled snap on the field goal try in the 2006 playoffs.
Oh, I remember that so clearly.
It was complete humiliation on the scoreboard, but it was total saturation on the airwaves. I feel like they replayed that fumble for a solid week.
It wasn't just a loss. It was a defining cultural moment of schadenfreude for the rest of the league. And that's the kind of content Jones loves.
That constant, intentional drama feeds the business. And this brings us right back to Bates and what he calls the loyalty paradox.
Right. Critics argue that Jones's profound loyalty is a professional flaw.
That it prevents him from making tough, timely decisions, like firing Garrett years earlier, or moving on from certain players when it makes financial sense.
It's seen as this sentimental weakness that undermines organizational efficiency.
But Bates completely reframes it. He insists that this deep, genuine loyalty isn't a weakness at all. It's a source of profound organizational strength.
It creates what he calls a unique Cowboys brotherhood. He argues that critics who are just focused on the bottom line miss the long-term human commitment that makes players feel valued beyond their contract.
And he points to specific, powerful examples that often get ignored in the headlines.
Like Jones sticking by Michael Irvin through all of his legal and personal issues.
Supporting Des Bryant through his struggles.
And, quietly helping former players like Demetrius Underwood and Alonzo Spellman with serious long-term mental health challenges. Things that don't make the papers.
And the most profound example he raises is what happened after that tragic car accident that killed teammate Jerry Brown Jr.
Josh Brandt was the driver. He was arrested. He faced serious legal action. Most owners would immediately just distance themselves from that catastrophic liability.
Jerry leaned in. He later gave Brent a scouting job in the organization.
But the critics would say that's all well and good, but personal charity doesn't excuse organizational negligence. Does Bates address that tension, where personal care clashes with the cold, hard business decision you need to make to win a championship?
He does, but his answer is more philosophical. He basically believes that the organizational culture built on that loyalty, where people are genuinely valued, that will ultimately provide the mental fortitude and commitment needed for a deep playoff run.
So it's a long-term investment in human capital.
Exactly. But yes, that is the central tension. It's the difference between a business focused on immediate results, like a Super Bowl ring, and a generational institution focused on long-term sustainability and human retention.
And that very commitment just ran headfirst into the biggest, messiest wall in recent Cowboys history.
The contract dispute and trade of generational superstar Micah Parsons. We have to unpack the messy public acrimony around the Parsons situation because it's a perfect case study of everything we're talking about.
It really is. Parcells, arguably the most dynamic defensive player in the league since maybe DeMarcus Ware.
No question.
He was heading into the 2025 season, looking for a massive extension, something that would define the financial stability of the entire defense for the next decade.
And Jones's negotiation style was just textbook Jerry. He bypassed Parsons' agent, a guy named David Mulugheta, and tried to broker the deal himself, one-on-one.
The move was just widely described as hubris. Jones, seeming to believe that his personal charm and the prestige of the star on the helmet could overcome market value and the advice of a professional.
It created an immediate, very public rift. Parsons eventually told reporters his mouth was closed about the negotiations.
And that was after his teammate CeeDee Lamb had already responded to Jones's media comments with just a single damning word: lol.
You can't come back from that. The consequence was inevitable. Parsons was traded to the Green Bay Packers.
The haul was defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 future first-round picks. The Packers GM called it a big swing. In Dallas, it was an existential shock to the system.
And Jones, of course, always ready with a narrative, immediately framed it as an attempt to recreate the magic of the 1989 Herschel Walker trade.
He's looking backwards. He's betting that selling one superstar for a collection of future assets will once again give him the foundation. You know, the Emmitt Smith, the Darren Woodson, that built the dynasty 30 years ago.
But we need to really dissect the difference in philosophy between the Walker trade and this Parsons trade.
It's a different league.
Completely. The Walker trade worked because the league was different, talent parity was lower, Jones got a boatload of draft capital to build over time.
The Parsons trade is different. Jones isn't waiting. He's taking the assets he got from Green Bay and he's using them aggressively right now.
That's his wildcatter nature coming out.
Absolutely. The sources show that with that acquired capital, Jones immediately traded defensive lineman Mazi Smith, a 2026 second-rounder, and the better of the 2027 first-rounders to get the elite defensive tackle Quinnen Williams.
A 27-year-old monster, a great run defender and pass rusher.
And they also acquired linebacker Logan Wilson for just a 7th-rounder, addressing depth issues in the middle of the defense.
The goal is crystal clear. Replace the singular generational talent of Parsons with a collection of strong, established players, Williams, Clark, Wilson, and still hold on to some draft capital.
It's a bet on quantity, depth, and immediate impact over the irreplaceable value of a singular game wrecker.
But it's a huge risk, especially financially. You brought up the cap issue earlier. Why are they so far over the cap in the coming years?
It's a huge problem. Right now, the team is structured to be over the salary cap by a massive $55 million in 2026.
$55 million.
To put that into perspective, that's basically the cost of 2 elite players, or half a franchise quarterback. They're currently structured to have to make massive forced cuts unless they achieve some kind of miracle cap relief through restructures.
Which just means pushing more money into future years, kicking the can down the road.
Exactly. So he traded a generational player who's about to cost him a lot of money to acquire multiple players who also cost a lot of money, putting immense pressure on their 2026 salary cap.
It's an aggressive, high-risk gamble.
And we cannot ignore the sheer, almost theatrical pettiness Jones inserted into the trade agreement itself.
This part is unbelievable.
It screams of competitive malice.
Yeah.
Jones included a specific poison pill condition.
So the mechanism dictates that the Packers owed Dallas a 2028 first-round pick if Green Bay trades Parsons to anyone in the NFC East.
Right, and it's specifically targeting the Eagles, who had reportedly tried to get him.
That is just next-level financial manipulation and control. It's almost admirable in its ruthless commitment to screwing over your rivals.
But it also confirms the critics' view, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Jones is so concerned about his rivals gaining an advantage that he'll prioritize future assets based on a what-if scenario.
Even as he's already proven that his ego prevented him from simply paying his own superstar in the first place.
It all connects back to the theme of control and the need for validation. He lost Parsons, but he had to ensure that the final maneuver, the last strategic move, was his, proving he can still dictate terms even after the player is gone.
So, okay. We have the $10 billion empire, the 29-year drought, the ego, the content mill strategy, and now this high-risk trade to try and recreate 1989.
But we have to introduce the most substantial piece of evidence against the idea that Jones is just a bad GM in the traditional sense.
Yes, the draft act.
The drafting. If he controls personnel, how do you reconcile decades of postseason failure with the incredible quality of their talent acquisition?
This is where the whole narrative just completely fractures. Because the data proves that his front office, specifically led by the vice president of player personnel, Will McClay, since 2014, has been mathematically the best at drafting in the entire NFL.
That's not an opinion. The Cowboys have drafted 15 Pro Bowlers since 2014. That is the most in the entire league during that period.
Their success rate on first-round picks over the last decade is over 80%. We are talking about elite cornerstone talent. Micah Parsons himself, CeeDee Lamb, Zach Martin, Trayvon Diggs.
And it's not just the top picks. McClay's department has a genius for finding value deeper down. I mean, finding Dak Prescott in the 4th round.
It's incredible. The idea that Jones is an incompetent accumulator of talent, it just doesn't track with the numbers. The foundation of raw talent on that team is elite.
So if the talent acquisition is stellar, as Bates argues, what is the single missing element? What prevents this high-powered engine from reaching top speed?
Bates believes it is the magic combo.
Explain that.
It's having the right quarterback and the right coach at the exact same time, operating in perfect sync, with the owner giving them the autonomy to execute their vision.
And Jones has consistently had excellent QB play. Romo, Prescott, and he's had the elite draft capital.
But that seamless championship-level leadership connection, that conductor and soloist perfectly harmonizing, that has been completely elusive in the playoff atmosphere.
You just look at the history. Romo with Wade Phillips. Romo with Jason Garrett, Prescott with Garrett, Prescott with Mike McCarthy.
They've consistently had one or two of the pieces, but the head coach has either been a pliable yes man,
or the owner's looming presence has prevented that coach from truly imposing a championship-level discipline, from making the tough roster decisions.
The talent evaluators, McClay, Stephen Jones, they're operating at a championship level. But the final decision maker, the owner GM, is the one common denominator who chooses the coach and sets the ultimate philosophy.
And that final piece of the puzzle, Bates believes, comes down entirely to psychology.
It connects right back to that moment of, I don't know, vulnerability or maybe cunning that Jones showed in that docuseries.
When his daughter Charlotte playfully mentioned not knowing much about running a football team.
And Jones replied with this shocking smile, "Neither do I."
That confession, admitting he had zero football knowledge before he bought the team. That's just extraordinary for a man who has insisted on holding the GM title for 3 decades.
So is it self-deprecation? Or is it a validation of his need to overrule the experts because he truly believes his gut instinct, his wildcatter risk assessment is superior to their data and experience?
And that is the central conflict of his entire legacy. For a man whose identity is now so completely wrapped up in being the hands-on GM, the architect of both the business and the roster, the final victory may require him to relinquish that very control.
Can he actually do it? Can he truly step back and empower the proven talent evaluators like Will McClay without needing that final ego-validating veto power?
Can he just become the CEO and not the chief football officer?
So we're left with these two extreme yet equally factual versions of the Jerry Jones legacy.
They're both true at the same time.
On one side, he's the business revolutionary who built a $10 billion global icon, who financially empowered the entire league, and whose front office is demonstrably the best at drafting talent in the NFL.
And on the other side, he's the ego-driven owner and micromanager whose need for absolute control created a nearly 30-year void of championship success.
avoid culminating in the messy, high-risk trade of a generational talent like Micah Parsons in a desperate attempt to recreate a decades-old stroke of genius.
And Bates's perspective, which is rooted in that deep personal gratitude, it forces us to try and synthesize the humanity behind that contradiction.
He's arguing that the value of the empire, the loyalty, the infrastructure, the wealth, is just too robust to fail forever. He believes Jones will win again because the structural foundation is so sound.
Even if the psychological hurdle is immense.
But the tension, that's the true product. Jones may be perpetually wrestling with the ghost of Jimmy Johnson, but that ongoing theatrical struggle is what ensures the Cowboys remain the most passionately debated, most emotionally volatile.
And the most profitable team on the planet. The saga is the content.
And this brings us to the final provocative question that just hangs over all the business success and all the on-field disappointment.
What if?
What if the Cowboys finally win the Super Bowl the season after Jerry Jones makes that psychological leap to truly delegate authority and step back from the GM role?
Would that championship be his greatest achievement for having built the perfect financial and scouting foundation and finally allowing the experts to finish the job?
Or would it be his greatest regret, confirming once and for all that his control was the only thing holding back the dynasty all along?
It forces you to ask if the pursuit of perfection in business inherently prevents the achievement of perfection on the field.
This episode is powered by Neon Core Media for stories they said were too real to tell.